I think it's about a couple months ago, I gave a homily describing the selling of my family home after the death of my mother. For those of you who weren't here, very briefly, my family bought a house in Newport Hills 50 years ago, half a century. Next month it would be 50 years. And through all the ups and downs of my family history over those decades, we came and went, but my mom stayed in that house the whole time. That was her house. And as I said, my siblings, they married, went off, got their own houses and families. But we still would gather there. That's where we had our birthdays and our Christmases and everything. For me, especially, it remained a home. For the 27 years as a priest, I moved all over. Tacoma, Olympic Peninsula, back here. And so for days off or other holidays, that's where I would go. That's the house I decorated for Christmas. And then it all ended. So my mom died a year and a half ago, and it made sense to sell the house. And since it's sold, I've deliberately not gone by. Not that I have any real need to, but I said, it's gone. I'm not going to go by. But one of my brothers did. He said the new owners must be gutting the inside because there's this huge heap of refuse out there in the driveway from the house. And so again, even the inside of the house is changing. So this home is gone. So on this Ascension Sunday, and also Mother's Day, I want to look back on that experience. In fact, I want to go back to the beginning of that Bellevue house as being home. How it got that way. What that means. So in 1974, spring of 74, we were all living in Beaverton, Oregon. My dad was in the Forest Service. And we had been transferred there 3 years before when I was in fourth grade, the middle of the year. We were from Pendleton, Oregon, small town. And I really hated that first move. Some people are extroverts, some introverts. So it was a tough move for me. I didn't like it. So now we're being told we're going to move again. And as soon as school was out, we were going to pack up and leave. So you can kind of imagine, I was a seventh grader. Nobody does disgruntled better than a seventh grader. That was me. Pouty, I was just upset. Attitude. Well, that spring, one day in the spring, my parents said, Mom and Dad were going to go up to Seattle to find a new house. We will stay there under the supervision of my older sister. When they got back, they were full of this good news. We found the perfect house. It's going to be great. You'll love it. I was thinking, yeah, right. So in June, we packed up, day after school was over, and we moved up to Bellevue, Newport Hills. And the house, I guess, is okay, I guess. No big deal. In fact, it took years. It took all those years of experience, ultimately 50 of them, living, crying, laughing, parties, funerals, receptions, all that sort of stuff, before that house became the home that I mourned last year. So at the Ascension, what does it have to do with the Ascension? At the Ascension, Jesus takes leave of his friends and his disciples 40 days after the resurrection. And he ascends to heaven. And it's important, he's not abandoning them. First off, we hear today in the gospel, he's sending them out on mission. But he has his own mission to fulfill, and it's for them. So he's going to prepare heaven for them. He's going to prepare a place for them. So Ascension can sometimes be called the Feast of Heaven, but I'm not sure that means that much to us. I think we have a hard time really getting our heads around heaven. We're told it's this ultimate experience. This is where we're supposed to be striving for. This is our end goal. And yet, what's it really like? I'm not sure we're very motivated by the thought of heaven. It all seems kind of abstract. Yeah, it's going to be super great, but again, it's kind of abstract. Well, I think one way to put some flesh on the bone, so to speak, about heaven, we hear kind of what, but what about the feeling? What does it feel like? And I think that one way to grasp a little bit of the experience of heaven here on earth is to think of heaven as home. That idea of what home is. Here maybe a Mother's Day segue. I think one of the things moms do, at least most, we all have different stories, but moms can be instrumental in creating home. Let's stay in just a while, just a minute. The cause of some of the greatest unidentified human suffering, because oftentimes we can't put a name to it, is suffering in human lives come from children and adults who never experienced home for whatever reason. And I know that may be your story. Home can be literally associated with a house, or it can be a city or town. It could be a region. It could be a place. But at its heart, home is always about loving relationships with other people that we then can associate with a place. So that home in Newport Hills was, or actually is, it's just a building that can be remodeled. It can be torn down. But what happened in it, for me, was life lived in relationship with my parents and siblings. And we had a loving family. We had a good experience with the family. So again, I transferred this. This is home. This is what I associate this with. And, that's what made it home. And for me, I can associate, that feeling can be, that's a foretaste of heaven, multiplied infinitely, so to speak. So the Ascension is the celebration of Jesus going to prepare a place for us to live eternally with him and our loved ones, friends, etc. And the good thing is, that's going to be all the people there. And I think here of Mom and Dad's trip to Seattle to find that house. They left us for a little bit of time, not to abandon us, to find and prepare a home for us. And in that, they are echoing Jesus' own mission, the Ascension. That's what the Ascension is all about. In John 14, 1-6, we have this account of Jesus at the Last Supper. And I think he gives a great account of what I just said. So this is just hours before he's going to be hauled away and he's going to be crucified. Jesus knows this. His friends don't. But he tells them at the Last Supper, do not let your hearts be troubled, because he knows they're going to be. I'm going to prepare a place for you, and I will come back again and take you to myself, so that where I am, you also may be. I'm going to get someplace ready, then we're going to come back, and I'm going to take you to myself. So this is the whole Paschal mystery. So sometimes we talk about the Paschal mystery as the suffering, death, and resurrection of Christ, but actually, theologically, it ends with the Ascension. The resurrection and the Ascension. As I felt very keenly upon hearing my brother's description of my gutted old home, here on earth, all homes are temporary. There's a time, when that house in Bellevue wasn't my home. It was just on the mouths of my mother and father, a supposedly great place my parents were trying to sell us on, telling us how great it was. I kind of like how we hear heaven is so great before getting there. In fact, I didn't want to move into that house. I didn't want to go there. But then there came also time at my mother's death when we sold the house when it stopped being home. And that's the way it is in this fading world of ours. I mean, friends move away, houses are sold, family members die. Home is never forever here. But Jesus told us in his apostle that last night, at the Last Supper, do not let your hearts be troubled, because his death and resurrection and ascension have won for us an eternal home in heaven. And it's waiting for us. Parents, children, family, other friends already there. In the meantime, I'd say, hold on to those senses of home, wherever they might be. Maybe you didn't have the blessing of a family home. Maybe it's a group. Maybe it's a team you had. Maybe it's a neighborhood. Maybe it's some guys at work. I don't know what the home is. But relish and save that sense, because it's a slight, sort of a whiff of heaven, so to speak. And so from that experience, we can at least, but again, flesh on the idea of heaven. So we know at least a little bit about what a heaven's like. Heaven is home forever.